All right, Rich Casanova alongside here, Michael Moore in our studio here at Serendipity Labs in Buckhead, just down the road from our other studio. Studio 2, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're very excited. As you may know, it is not only hashtag Giving Tuesday, which is phenomenal for nonprofits. And as we mentioned before we went on the air, we've had this mission early on. How could we give back to nonprofits, right? As an emerging brand, what could we do? Could we get behind a single nonprofit? Could we put aside some of our proceeds? And then we had what's called a BFO. It's called the blinding flash of the obvious, right? Yeah. So the idea is we have a platform as an emerging brand, over 500,000 listeners, 500,000 downloads, right? Top 5% in globally in website traffic, yada, yada, yada. So with that in mind, we thought, wait a second, why don't we just underwrite the show and we'll create a show and that's our give back to nonprofits. So let them come in. And no offense to the large organizations, the massive global, but they have a lot of media coverage already, right? So we want to tell the stories of local community-based nonprofits and the work that they're doing, their mission, how we can help, how the audience, how the listeners can help them and so forth, and just help get their word out, right? And speaking of getting their word out, we have two great nonprofits joining us here in the studio on this episode. And we're going to be hearing about it in our second episode from Robin, and you're with a group, a couple of different companies, Better Not Bitter and March for Tech.
Yeah, Be Better Not Bitter. Thanks a lot, Rich. Be Better Not Bitter is our first initiative. It's a nonprofit, but the first initiative is March for Tech, where we take donated computers and teach kids how to repair them. So stay tuned after my new friends from 48 at 48 do their thing, and we'll tell you how the kids that can't get into the STEM and the magnet programs have access to technology with us.
A great teaser and a great lead into our next guest. Maybe you need to host a show in the studio here. We'll talk about that. Yeah,
I'm your man, Ray.
All right, cool. So as we mentioned, 48 and 48 is joining us here. Carole Williams, along with Rachelle, is here. So before we talk about what you're currently doing, tell us a little bit about your backstory before 48 and 48. So, Carole, what were you doing in a former life?
After I graduated from college, I took an unpaid internship with a nonprofit in fundraising and events, and then have been doing just about the same thing ever since. So from a few different organizations, American Diabetes Association, and then Major Giving with United Way, and then decided to take a little bit more of an entrepreneurial spin doing 48 and 48. So here we are.
And Rachelle, what's your story in 17 seconds or less? Yeah,
17 seconds or less. So
I'll give you 48 seconds. Yeah, no,
good one. Only seems fair. Yeah. I'll talk fast. So my background is actually I am an entrepreneur here in Atlanta that has a brand content firm called Watchword, and one of the things that we commit to doing is taking on a nonprofit. And so a number of years ago, I met two really lovely people named Jeff and Adam who were starting this initiative and really needed someone who could come in and help with content building and messaging for these nonprofits, and I've been involved ever since.
And speaking of Adam Walker, shout out to him, right? We were talking before we went on the air. He was actually in our Buckhead studio way back September 1st we looked at, right. 2015. Mm-hmm. And as we recall, he was saying, coming next month, we're going to do this thing called 48, see how it works out,
Very
right?
first one.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow. It's kind of crazy, the power of the internet. So, all right, so talk to us about, that backstory for people who have not heard about 48 and 48. How did it get started and why? We'll start with that before we get into what it's about.
Yeah, so Rachelle mentioned Jeff and Adam. They're both run marketing agencies here in Atlanta, and really they came together with the idea to better engage their employees with not only their companies but the community, and with something like building websites for nonprofits was where they found that they could bring the most amount of volunteers together. And so that's where we came up with the idea to build 48 nonprofit websites in a 48-hour time frame. And,
that's crazy. We were talking about that, like maybe hosting it here, and it's literally like the whole weekend.
The whole weekend,
right?
Yep.
From
it's Friday night to Sunday night.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So we're camping out with sleeping bags and everything, or what? Yeah.
It depends on how young you are.
Right. Yeah. You're thinking air mattress. I know what you're thinking.
I'm thinking I go home and sleep for a few hours.
Yeah, you'll be at the Mandarin or in a hotel right here. Yeah, out our window. Yeah. All right. So, so what's your role there, Rachelle? You mentioned as an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so,
Star volunteer. Ultimate volunteer.
Well, I think that one of the things that really became obvious early on was the goal was to help all of these nonprofits who spend all of their time doing good, helping them to look good, and to appeal to the audiences who matter most to them. So the constituents who they serve, the people who volunteer with them, and the donors who support them. And what we really needed to do was to make sure that we were speaking to them all appropriately and helping the nonprofits to do that as well. So my job has been, kind of helping nonprofits to craft those messages and helping 48 and 48 to do that as well. And, sleeping on air mattresses.
Nice, yeah.
Once a year.
Which, by the way, I don't know if I've seen it on YouTube, the founders of Airbnb, you know what that stands for? I kind of gave it away a little bit. You think like air travel, whatever, in a bed and breakfast. But when they first started in California, the buddy in New York flew out and said, we're going to start a business, had no idea. They didn't even have an idea. But they were at a conference and all the hotels were sold. So they said, we got a spot at our little apartment. We'll blow up an air mattress. That's what the Airbnb stands for. For this first 6 months, everybody booked it. You stayed on an air mattress. But a side note, we'll probably edit that part out, yeah.
Okay. Well, if you're editing, then I think that person's from Atlanta.
Really?
Or nearby.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
that's right.
I didn't know that, yeah. Okay, so we'll keep that in there then, yeah. All right, so send us some money, Airbnb, yeah. All right, so
partner for the
wait a minute.
That's right.
partner with 48 and 48, for that's where the people stay, Airbnbs.
Exactly, yeah.
right.
That's right, yeah.
We're in
They-
6
they
cities
need-
now and 10 next year.
Well, that's what's interesting. We're going to talk about some of your stats. So what's cool about this as well is this 48 and 48 has really morphed for what, 3 years now it's been in operation?
Fourth year.
Fourth year, okay. Coming up on the fourth year. It's an annual event. We want to talk about some events you do throughout the year besides the main event, right? So let's go ahead and do that before we get into the main event. So what are some activities or what keeps you busy the other 364 days?
Well, one of the things I mentioned is that we are now in 6 cities. When we started just doing an annual 48 and 48 in Atlanta. And so really we planned 6 events of these same events across the globe now, with our first international event actually happening in London.
I heard about
just
that.
recently.
So they're not all happening in October, so they're staggered throughout the year. That
Yep.
makes sense. That's a little bit more manageable, right? Yeah.
You would think so.
Exactly.
Plus, that's genius too, because sometimes it's at like we were involved a number of years now recently with LeaderCast, and it's the world's largest leadership event. Right, it happens to be a host city in Atlanta, 7,000 people, but it's their main event is one event and then simulcast all around the country, the world. But what you're saying in these other 6 cities, they're happening throughout the year. So mention some of those cities.
So in the spring, we do, with the intention of each of these cities holding annual events so that they would be doing it year after year.
Right.
In the spring this year, we did an event in Boston.
Okay.
We did Raleigh-Durham area.
Right.
In North Carolina. And then we did Bloomington, Illinois, actually sponsored by State Farm.
Okay.
And
Shout out to those
at
guys.
their headquarters, yeah.
Wow.
And then, let's see, then in the fall we did Atlanta, New York, and London. And if we're going to be making shout outs to our sponsors, then that might be, you might see a common thread between those. They're all Delta hubs. So thank you, Delta Airlines.
Yeah. All right. Let's fly Delta. All right. And next time the London or the Hawaiian give us a call, we'll be happy to broadcast from there. Either, yeah.
Yes.
We're fighting for that one.
We'll take it on the road. We've done 3 events now in Vegas, whatever. Yeah, so we can take this on the road. Let's talk about some stats. Some of your numbers are just unbelievably impressive. So we mentioned the 6 cities, but it's a global engagement of 10,000 volunteers, 2,500 nonprofits, reaching 75 million of impact. Is part of your
That's the goal.
Is your goal, right? But since its inception, we're talking to 900 volunteers. You've served 700 or more nonprofits.
That's right.
That's mind-blowing, right? And coming on 4 years?
Yeah, we put together those numbers earlier this year, and just kind of doing our annual report, and we go, I can't believe we just collectively, it's been $19 million of impact.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah,
and
awesome.
I think that it really speaks to the underlying sort of, BHAG of the organization, and this idea that, when you equip a nonprofit that's making such a massive impact in their community, it's an exponential spread of good.
Right.
So it really is pretty astounding.
And so speaking of those numbers, so once you talk to us about your big goal vision, right? Because I see it on my notes right here, but it's pretty it's a pretty lofty goal, right?
That's right, and you can blame our founders, Jeff and Adam, for that. Right. I still my
We're
heart beats a little bit faster every time I hear that.
We're going to take that shout out back from Adam.
But no, so the goal by 2025 is to hold 48 of these signature 48-hour events in 48 cities across the globe. And so right now we just completed 6 in 1 year. Next year we're trying to hit 10, and then the following year we'll be in 20. So 20 events in 2020. That makes sense.
Oh,
right?
that's good. That's a good one. Yeah.
So we're really excited about that. But what that means really by the time that we get to 2025 is that annually we can have about 10,000 marketing and technology volunteers participating, helping to serve nonprofits on a global basis, which is about, if we did 48 of those events, it'd be almost 2,400 nonprofits worldwide. And with each event averaging about $1.5 million of impact for that specific city, that's about $75 million across the globe.
Wow, I mean those are very impressive. Kudos and congratulations. We'll insert
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll insert the applause later. Or whatever, yeah. So talk to us about. You mentioned a nonprofit you're serving. Give us a couple of stories or examples of those. How it's impacted a nonprofit.
Oh, there's so many.
I know. I'm not asking you to pick the favorite, but just what comes to mind, like an example of a nonprofit, a group that engaged with you guys, built their website, and what was some of the stories that progressed from there. Yeah,
we had the Georgia Farmers Market a couple years ago, actually, and they were one-on-one. They just said what a whirlwind of an experience it was working with volunteers. So we get these marketing and technology volunteers, sometimes individually, sometimes coming from companies. They're paired up with these teams about 2 weeks or so before the actual event happens. And so they have 2 weeks or so to really get all of the branding information, the content information that they would need we actually give them a staging site. They're uploading some basic text and images and whatnot to their staging site, going through this coursework. And it is a whirlwind of an experience. So she says, but the impact overall really for a nonprofit is to help them better engage with their current communities.
Right.
And why do you think that's a challenge for a nonprofit? A dumb question, to create a website? Or
I think it's just they're so busy doing the work that they have founded the organization to do that, our experience in talking with them is oftentimes it's just something they've kind of not prioritized or made time to do. They've also not necessarily had the knowledge base. And so, in going through this preparation that Carole was talking about, they're also really learning how to manage a WordPress platform, how to do email marketing, how to do a lot of these things that they maybe have never been taught to do.
Yeah, how much do you get on the follow-up or the back end? So it's one thing because WordPress, that's our site, and it's a lot of moving parts between the plugins and the management, and we do we have double, triple redundancy where we do clone sites just for backup and so forth and so on. So how much? She's nodding like, "Dang, this guy knows a little bit more."
Yeah. Good for
I'm going to be I'm the
recruited.
oldest millennial you'll ever meet. Yeah,
You're the next volunteer.
yeah, the next volunteer. Easy
right.
there. Yeah. Okay, so. So what happens after they build the site? Is there follow-up or additional engagement?
Right. So after each event, we give each nonprofit about 30 days of free hosting, actually on a 48 and 48 platform that we've created on WordPress, which also helps us to scale with the volunteers. And so side note that, all the plugins and themes are pre-purchased and vetted and licensed and whatnot. So those nonprofits have 30 days of free hosting where they can really reach out to the help desk, make sure that they have what they need and what they want from that site.
Nice.
From there, they can choose to do whatever they wish with their website. If they want to stay on 48 and 48's platform, fantastic. If they need to move somewhere else, we can help them migrate.
We have a couple of minutes left here before we start talking to the man to my left right here. Robin's going to come up in a second, but I want to remind our listeners you're listening to the Pro Business Channel studios here in Atlanta in our $1 billion Buckhead view. Shout out to Serendipity Labs here. But beyond that, this is our inaugural day, first ever series. We've done 6 of these now, and we got another one to go for NonProfits Radio. And check out more information at nonprofits.org as our way to give back to the good work that community-based nonprofits are doing. So as you know, we're on Giving Tuesday today. So why give to 48 and 48?
You want me to take it?
I can go on and on. I mean, I'll tee it up and let you take it home. And I would say really, it's that, one small bit of donation is going to extend so far. You know, there's so much work being done by so many people on so many levels with this nonprofit that giving on Giving Tuesday or any other time, frankly, during the year is
giving on Wednesday or Thursday
Wednesday,
or Friday.
Thursday, Saturday, any day that ends in a Y, is going to make our community and the communities where 48 and 48 is busy, make that community better.
Thank you.
And Carole, you're supposed to send it home or something?
Send it home.
Take it home.
I think honestly what it means for us is just to helping us with that growth. This is a lot of impact that we want to have, and we can't do it without the volunteers and the donors along the way.
Well said. And then call to action. So obviously the website, give out any social media or website.
48and48.org.
What'd you say? 48in48.org? Yeah.
Yep.
That's too simple. Yeah.
48in48.org.
How'd you get that domain name? Yeah.
Yeah, no, clever, right?
All right. So hang tight here. If time permits, we may do an afternoon. We may do an open panel discussion here. I'm going to turn the mic over to Mr. Michael Moore, for our next segment. Here we go, Robin.
Well, thank you, Rich. It's Michael Moore here on the Pro Business Channel, and it's Giving Tuesday. As we said, #Giving Tuesday. So we've run about 7 shows today so far, and we're getting ready to have one more fun interview here with Mr. Stern, who is Robin has a very interesting product. Not only is he in the computer industry, but he's actually using that access point to be in a community west of Atlanta here to make a true difference for a lot of important people. Be better, not bitter is the tagline of the products he delivers, and he'll give us a little bit of conversation about that. But also the fact that it's March for Tech, which is actually the deliverable where he teaches children, youth, people who aren't employed yet to be employed in the computer industry. So, it's very interesting. I know from the computer industry you had a natural entree into this arena, but go ahead and give us part of that story.
Well, thanks a lot, Mike. I really appreciate it. I will apologize up front if I have any stumbling. I've never been on a radio talk show before, so I feel okay about it. But
well, tomorrow you say you've been on radio.
The tongue tie might come, so I'm just preparing you in advance. So what we did is we came up with this term, be better, not bitter, many years ago. Best friend, 35 years we've been together, and he had a couple of kids in his life, and one of them got in trouble and just melted away and wound up in jail and in prison. And the other one got in trouble, but then he found his way free, and he was able to become a successful young man. And we wanted to know what changed, what was different in their lives. They were both exposed to the same people in the same environments. Why was it different? Why was one able to be better and one wound up being bitter? So came up with this logo and design, and I moved to Georgia from Florida, and this went on for years. I got a box of T-shirts delivered in the mail about 5 years ago with a logo on it, and it was beautiful, and I thought we need to do something with this. I wanted to take donated computers and somehow get them in the hands of kids that would not have access to those, and then teach them how to fix those computers, how to become somewhat of a computer technician, if you will, and just change the mindset of that cycle of poverty that's, I'm going to work at Walmart or McDonald's for the rest of my life, and I'll have 16 roommates because we cannot make enough money to support ourselves. Well, what happened was Ronnie, my buddy's name Ronnie, he died in a car wreck a few years back. And when that happened, I felt determined that I had to do something with this be better, not bitter. I'm now the poster child, right? My best friend in the whole world for 30 years. We're supposed to grow old together. Now he's gone. So we incorporated the name. We filed for nonprofit status. And then the story is February 24th, we put in the application. March 11th, I got a letter from the IRS. I figured I forgot something. I did something wrong. No, it was the approval letter saying congratulations. And the name March for Tech came because we were trying to come up with a name for the program that we wanted to do with the computers. Be better, not bitter doesn't really say anything about computer training. So we were looking for a domain name because I'm a computer guy. I work backwards, reverse engineer, find the domain name that you can get and then make that the name of the program, right? Tech for Teens, Teen Tech, Teach Teens Tech, none of that worked. I looked down on my desk, and here's the date that they stamped the approval was March 4th. So march4tech.com was available, nice. And now that was the birth of it 3 years ago. Just completed our 3rd year with 23 computer systems given away to 23 deserving kids.
Well, I know one of your taglines is you're looking for undiscovered genius. So let's talk about some of those stories of people you've already discovered that are actually being benefited
Absolutely.
by. And then also take one of those if you can and project where they'll be in 5 or 10 years.
Absolutely. We're tracking that very closely. We're working with the humanities department over at KSU to write a story about this and to try and follow these kids for about 10 years because we're taking them from 10 to 15 years old. So we'd like to see where they progress to, a thesis paper, if you will. So one of the young men that came into my first year was so attention deficit that they figured he would never sit still for 5 minutes for this class. I had to pop him in the head with a box many times and get his attention many, many times. But Daniel has become he's almost teaching the class now. The first year when we got finished, the ladies that had him at the Boys and Girls Club for many, many years said, there's no way that kid did that. There's no way that kid sat through that class. There's no way he's that respectful. There's no way. And on the last day of that summer, they have a big party. There's a room full of people dancing, eating ice cream, and having a great time. I walked in, and Daniel got up from the other side of the room, walked across the middle of the room in front of 150 people and hugged me. And I'm telling you, he ruined me. This drove home the whole point of what I'm trying to do. It's not about the computers. It's not about the technology. That's the carrot. It's about teaching these kids that somebody cares. Somebody thinks you matter and you are worth something. Because that's where a lot of this is going. The county we're from, 47% are under the poverty line, 77% are single-family homes. These kids don't have predominantly a dad in their life. Sure. And so we're trying to be that to them. We're mentoring them, teaching them to pull up their pants and shake a firm handshake and look you in the eye. We're reaching out to retired military and school teachers to be mentors in the classroom. So once we got the kids with the computer, now they're exposed to it, right. Daniel's older brother, Nigel, just turned 15, his third year in the program as well. Nigel has a YouTube channel that he's now shooting his own videos and creating his own content with over 10,000 followers on his YouTube video channel. So he is definitely, I can foresee him being in some sort of graphics animation or possibly in some sort of video production over the next couple of years. And we're working very closely with him to make that happen. So we're plugging him into the people in town that can give him that exposure.
Well, giving a shout out, just one of our neighbors down the hall, there's 8 huge screens down here in graphic animation going on just 50 feet from where you sit right now.
Well, there you go.
So I know you mentioned the Boys and Girls Clubs, you mentioned community environment. Talk a little bit about your partnerships with people who are making a difference out there and making life just a little easier for you and certainly a lot better for the kids.
Well, we do have a lot of volunteers. I work with a lot of networking groups in the area, and I put out the word to anybody that's interested in getting some of that time. The bottom line is it's not just benefiting the children. It benefits the person volunteering, and ultimately it benefits the entire community at large. We're looking at changing the economic picture of a county that is just in the dirt right now, and we can do that with the 10-year-olds. We can get them to that point. So we have been partnered with, first we started with the Boys and Girls Club. That was a kind of a divine thing. Here's where you're going to teach. I had the computers, but I didn't have any kids. And during the day we had Snowmageddon a few years back, I had to walk home, and I walked right past the Boys and Girls Club, and that little voice in my head said, there's your students. And like I said, we just completed our third year there. They had been donated a construction trailer. They weren't using it. It was a ready-made classroom. Our first mission was I taught the kids how to run an internet cable from inside the main building all the way out to the trailer. We trenched it underground. We ran it through the ceilings. They learned how to do a site survey and how to figure out how to run that wire. So we put our own internet in the trailer. It was a pretty cool experience.
Good old way. What do you need? What do you have? Let's go do it today, as you said. Now, you're an entrepreneur. You talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
You haven't been hindered because you're in a county where everybody's open-armed.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
You've hit no road barriers. No.
We have. Okay. We have.
So talk about some of the new partners you've acquired because of those barriers you've bumped into and when people realize what you're doing.
Right. So what happens is we run into being an entrepreneur and working for myself for so many years. When I say something gets done, it gets done. I mean, we're 10 minutes later, it's finished. And then when you work in the world of nonprofits and charitable organizations, I'm going to tell you I've been getting an experience, and I'm very grateful for that experience because I'm sure it's going to serve me very well in the future with Be Better, Not Bitter. But we have asked a few different companies to come alongside, and we've been partnered now with Google. They give us a huge amount of money for ad grants every month. Microsoft is providing all of the license keys that we need for all these computers because you can't just take a computer and hand it to somebody else. There's this licensing thing that has to happen. And most recently, this last summer, we wanted to put these upgraded hard drives in all the computers because normally a donated computer doesn't have the hard drive with it. They take it. And we spent over $1,000 of our budget to buy hard drives because we wanted to give these kids the best. And there's a new technology in hard drives. It's called SSD for all you techies out there. And yes, all our kids got i5 computers with 8 gig video cards and SSDs in them. So I had to put that for the techies. Well, I reached out to PNY Technologies. PNY is in Parsippany, New Jersey, and they make memory chips and hard drives, these new style hard drives actually. And I said, hey, we want you to donate these. We need 30 of them this year. And they said, yeah, we'll give you a 20% discount on our costs. I said, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And that was the end of it. 2 weeks later, I get an email back from the guy. He says, I revisited it with my boss, and we're on board. So we will be your worldwide sponsor. We'll provide all your memory chips, all your hard drives. You don't have to worry about it. Here's our marketing people's information. Get this online. Get it on social media. Blow it up. Make a big deal out of it. We are a worldwide sponsor. So very exciting. But 2 days later, a box of 30 hard drives showed up. And this is the way things work when you're operating in this, right? There's no paperwork. There's no request. There's no anything. The need just gets met. It's just fulfilled. And it blows my mind.
Well, you ask, and sometimes it appears, right?
Just keep knocking. Just keep knocking.
You've encountered a lot of folks out in your section of the city. Are you planning to grow your process a little further out, stretching out your arms? Or
believe it or not, I ran into a group at the last expo at the Cobb Civic Center, Joel's Expo, and they do franchising. They teach and help companies franchise. They do a lot of nonprofit work as well, and they're going to work with me to create a turnkey system that we can go into any city, any Boys and Girls Club, anywhere, and with the right person teaching, they don't even have to know computers. We can teach them everything they need.
That is phenomenal. So how can people get more information on your products?
Well, like 48and48.org, we were very lucky and blessed. We got bbnb.org. That's Be Better, Not Bitter, initials. There's a donate button right on the main page. There's a lot of information about what we do and who we are. And certainly if any business owners out there have hardware they need to get rid of, we are a 501c3. We can give a donation receipt. If we can't use the hardware, we guarantee it goes into a recycling center and not the landfill. So we are a green company as well, getting rid of all that stuff and providing a service for those companies.
Now, you're here in Atlanta, but everybody's not familiar with all the places in Atlanta. So give us a little geographical education.
Okay.
What part of the city you're servicing and so forth.
Okay, so Be Better Not Bitter is based in Paulding County, which is in Dallas, Georgia. That's west of Atlanta. And there's 27 Boys and Girls Clubs in the Metro Atlanta Boys and Girls Club group. So we're hoping to have those within the next 3 years, have it in all 27 locations. There's over 4,200 Boys and Girls Clubs in the country. So once we get those 3 years completed and get those 27, then we're on to the rest of the country. That's when I retire from my for-profit and I work full-time on the nonprofit.
So one more time, how do they get in touch with you?
bbnb.org, bebetternotbitter.org, marchfortech.com, BBMB Inc. on Facebook, Instagram, all those.
All right, so
KGB, CIA.
No, none of those.
So we've got we're blessed here to have two sets of nonprofits or two nonprofits here that actually kind of overlap a little bit. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about her counting up how many computers they need to be at the next event, and I'm thinking about where are you going to use these kids? Wouldn't it be nice to have about 8 or 10 of these kids observing what your qualified marketing and training people did? So let's open it up for some questions and thoughts, and kind of, as we say down in Alabama, stir that pot.
Stir that pot. Yes, sir.
See what we can blend up here. What does this gumbo look like?
Well, I'll tell you, we actually could come and set up the hardware for you. My guys could come in. These are kids that have been teaching, taking this class for 3 years. They know how to set it all up. They know how to get it all networked. They know how to make sure it's all in place and working. We have the hardware that we could use for that event. You wouldn't have to rent it or lease it. But I do know a lot of designers like to bring their own stuff. They like to bring their own laptops and stuff like that. But hey, if they need 27-inch monitors to plug into, or they need big screens to put it up on,
very cool.
We could provide all that as well. And we could bring all of my students to come and do that for you, giving them that exposure.
Carole, is that yes or yes?
Tough one.
3 seconds, yes.
All right, Rachel, super volunteer. How do you see this helping out maybe in some of your projects?
I think I'm not so sure about helping out in our projects, but something that I've really heard resonate is the power of asking. Yep. Especially on Giving Tuesday. There is this incredible power of Giving Tuesday because it uses social media to communicate, the good that's being done by so many nonprofits, and the opportunity to have a platform to ask, to say this is what we're doing, and to tell those stories is incredible. And I think that there is a tremendous power in and confidence in just putting the word out by saying, you know what, there's benefit here, so join us. People love to be invited.
Yeah, absolutely.
Participate. Let me make an observation. I'm sitting here thinking about this event and these opportunities, these kids. You said you allow hosting of the new site from 48 and 48 for 30 days. But also there's that great need in the nonprofit for literate computer people who don't come with their own agendas. I mean, I'm being a little facetious there, but having a kid come in and learn from the bottom up what's going on in this nonprofit and become maybe a lifelong volunteer of a cause that they might have never been exposed to if they didn't participate.
That's
the faces. They're about to blow up, both of them.
I know.
Language.
I know. It's exactly what we've done over the last couple years, actually, sponsored by LexisNexis and working with Tag Ed here in Atlanta. You guys probably know them as well. But we've done just that, really, and for the purposes that you had just said. So we want to make sure that we're not only working with and having an outlet for professionals in the marketing and technology industries, but being able to share that with the next generation as well. So they have students coming from local colleges, local high schools, through Tag Ed who actually do our application process. And we had about 30 students come in, each paired up with different teams who work there. So not only are they getting the experience of, hands-on experience with the website production process, networking with these companies and professionals in the industry, but also sharing and seeing the good that can be done by using your unique professional skills for good.
Right. Perfect.
Well, as we said, you're here on Pro Business Channel. We're here on Giving Tuesday, so let's make the circle around this table one more time. What have we learned today? What's your biggest takeaway, Rachel?
My biggest takeaway, I think, is that there are a lot of really great people in the world doing a lot of really great things, and Giving Tuesday is a wonderful opportunity to sort of celebrate that, and just the confidence of asking for help and is a catalyst for a lot of people to do great work.
Robin?
Well, I just want to wrap up with saying when you do ask, you do receive. This connection with P&Y wound up being half a tractor trailer full of computers that were donated to us from New Jersey. CSX Transportation picked it up and brought it to us. We found out about 70 of the computers aren't really powerful enough for us to use in this country, but we are now being a conduit. We just sent 10 of those computers with a generator to a school in Haiti. And we have 20 more of them that are getting changed and fixed up. My students are getting them ready, getting them prepared, and then we're shipping them to Haiti for a school that would never have technology any other way. So
sounds like a nonprofit dream.
It is beautiful.
Fulfilling a need which you didn't realize existed until you had something that you couldn't use the way you intended.
Incredible.
And Carole, excuse me.
I'm going to say between the two of you guys, in terms of making an ask, but then also how much good there is in the world. One of the things that 48 and 48 actually struggles with is getting the word out to the nonprofits specifically. So to everybody who's listening and to all of you guys, we need you guys to recommend nonprofits. If you are a nonprofit, go to 48and48.org and apply for a new website. That's something that we always struggle with because 48 is a big number when it comes down to, and it's about 10 hours of coursework for those nonprofits, so it's a bit of a commitment, but we need as many people to even know about this option.
That's a big shopping list, and I've got some ideas there, so
okay,
I'll be working on that. That's the
Great.
takeaway I have today. Folks, it has been great to have you here on Pro Business Channel today. Well, isn't it great to be on the first day of nonprofit radio? You can say, I was the first, I was a
Pioneer. We're the pioneers.
Pioneer. They're here. No arrows in our backs today. We're going to go on down the trail and have a Sunday afternoon here in Buckhead. So, again, this is Michael Moore with Pro Business Channel and Rich Casanova, who is now on the screen taking things. So, until next time, we'll see you guys.